At just 21 years old, Palmer Luckey sold his company to Facebook for $2 billion, becoming one of the youngest self-made millionaires in Silicon Valley. But only a few years later, he was suddenly fired from the very company that once bet everything on his vision. And what happened next shocked the entire tech world. Because instead of disappearing, he came back stronger, building a multi-billion-dollar defense technology company backed by the US government, turning from a VR prodigy into one of the most controversial figures shaping the future of warfare. This is not just a story of innovation. This is a story of ambition, betrayal, and one of the most unexpected comebacks in modern tech history. And at the center of it all is the man that even Mark Zuckerberg once trusted to build the future, but later had to let go. This is the story of Palmer Luckey. Long before Palmer Luckey became a billionaire, he was just a homeschooled kid growing up in California, obsessed with electronics, video games, and a strange idea that most people didn't take seriously at the time: virtual reality, while other kids were playing games. Palmer was taking them apart, digging through online forums, collecting old VR headsets from the 90s that had already failed on the market, and experimenting endlessly in his parents' garage, building prototype after prototype with parts he could barely afford, often held together with duct tape and pure determination. He didn't come from a prestigious university. He didn't have a powerful network. What he had was obsession, the kind that makes someone spend years chasing something the world has already given up on. And while big tech companies had abandoned VR as a dead end, Palmer believed they were all wrong. He believed that the technology just wasn't ready yet, and he was determined to be the one to fix it, posting his progress online, connecting with a small community of believers, and slowly, quietly, building what would eventually become the foundation of a revolution that no one saw coming. Everything changed when Palmer Luckey decided to show his homemade prototype to the world, not through a big company or a flashy launch, but through a simple Kickstarter campaign. In 2012, he introduced the Oculus Rift, a virtual reality headset that didn't look perfect, didn't feel polished, but delivered something no one had experienced before: true immersion. And almost instantly, the internet exploded. Developers, gamers, and tech enthusiasts flooded in, backing the project with millions of dollars, far beyond its original goal, turning a garage experiment into one of the hottest startups in Silicon Valley overnight. But what made this moment even more powerful was who started paying attention. Legendary game developer John Carmack, the mind behind Doom and Quake, was so impressed that he joined the company, giving Oculus instant credibility. And from that point on, Palmer was no longer just a kid experimenting in a garage. He was leading a movement, bringing virtual reality back from the dead and forcing the entire tech industry to take it seriously again. And it didn't take long before the biggest players in the world started circling. In 2014, everything changed overnight when Facebook made a move that no one saw coming. They acquired Oculus for $2 billion, turning Palmer Luckey from a young hacker into one of the most talked about figures in Silicon Valley. And at the center of this decision was Mark Zuckerberg, who believed that virtual reality wasn't just a niche technology, but the next major computing platform after smartphones. A bold vision that placed Palmer at the heart of Facebook's future. Suddenly, The kid who built headsets in his garage was now working inside one of the most powerful tech companies in the world, with unlimited resources, top engineers, and global attention. Oculus was no longer just a startup. It became the foundation of Facebook's long-term bet on the metaverse. But with that level of attention also came pressure, expectations, and scrutiny. And while everything looked like a dream from the outside, behind the scenes, tensions were slowly building. Decisions were becoming more political. And the same company that once believed in Palmer's vision would soon become the place where his story took a dramatic and unexpected turn. Just as everything seemed perfect, the story of Palmer Luckey took a sudden and dramatic turn in 2016. Reports surfaced linking him to a political group that supported controversial online campaigns during the U.S. election. And almost overnight, the young genius who once represented the future of innovation became a highly divisive figure inside Facebook. The backlash was intense, both internally and externally. Employees questioned his presence. Media pressure kept growing. And the situation quickly became more than just about technology. It became about politics, reputation, and risk. While Mark Zuckerberg initially tried to distance the company from the controversy, the tension inside Facebook continued to rise, and by 2017, Palmer Luckey was gone. Officially, there was no clear explanation, no dramatic announcement, just a quiet separation. But many believe the reason was obvious. The company that once invested billions in his vision had decided he was no longer part of its future. And just like that, one of Silicon Valley's brightest young stars disappeared from the spotlight, leaving behind unanswered questions, controversy, and a reputation that seemed impossible to rebuild. Most people thought Palmer Luckey was finished after leaving Facebook, that his reputation had been damaged beyond repair, and that Silicon Valley had quietly moved on without him. But instead of trying to return to the same world that pushed him out, Palmer chose a completely different path. In 2017, he co-founded Anduril Industries, a company focused not on entertainment, but on national security, artificial intelligence, and the future of warfare. It was a shocking pivot, going from virtual reality headsets to building autonomous defense systems, surveillance towers, and AI-powered military technology. And while many in Silicon Valley were uncomfortable with this direction, the U.S. government was not. Anduril quickly secured major defense contracts, positioning itself as a new kind of military tech company, one that moved fast, built aggressively, and challenged traditional defense giants. Palmer was no longer trying to fit into Silicon Valley's culture. He was building something entirely on his own terms. And in doing so, he turned his biggest setback into the foundation of an even bigger comeback, proving that being pushed out of one industry doesn't mean the end. Sometimes it just forces you to dominate another. What started as a risky pivot quickly turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. As Anduril Industries began to grow at an incredible pace, securing contracts with the U.S. Department of Defense and Border Security agencies, building advanced AI systems, autonomous drones, and surveillance platforms that could operate faster and more efficiently than traditional defense contractors. And at the center of it all was Palmer Luckey, no longer the young VR founder trying to prove himself, but a confident leader shaping how modern warfare is being designed and executed. Anduril didn't just compete with legacy defense companies. It challenged them, moving with startup speed in an industry known for bureaucracy. And within just a few years, the company reached multi-billion-dollar valuations, attracting top talent, massive funding, and serious attention from governments around the world. But with that influence also came controversy, because Palmer's new mission raised difficult questions about the role of technology in war, the ethics of autonomous weapons, and whether innovation should have limits. And once again, he found himself at the center of a global debate, not about virtual reality this time, but about power, security, and the future of conflict itself. The story of Palmer Luckey is not just about virtual reality or even defense technology. It's about what happens when someone refuses to follow the path that others expect, from a homeschooled teenager building headsets in a garage, to a billionaire backed by Mark Zuckerberg, to being pushed out of Facebook and then rising again with Anduril Industries. His journey challenges the idea that success is a straight line. Instead, it shows that the biggest breakthroughs often come from those willing to take risks that others avoid, to build things that make people uncomfortable, and to keep going even when the world turns against them. Some see him as a visionary, others see him as controversial. But no one can ignore his impact, because whether it's redefining how we experience digital worlds or reshaping how nations defend themselves, Palmer Luckey has proven one thing again and again. The future doesn't belong to those who play it safe. It belongs to those who are willing to build it, no matter the cost.